Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Hybrid Friends. Today with my friend Aravind from CloudAssert, and we will have an awesome discussion about multi-tenancy with HCI today. But before we start in the conversation, Aravind, can you introduce yourself? Can you maybe give us a short introduction on CloudAssert and what you're doing?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. This is Aravind Sundaresan from CloudAssert, and thank you, Flo, for having me on the show. Really happy about that. So we are from CloudAssert, and CloudAssert is an ISV, and we're close to completing our 10th year as a company. And our founder is ex-Microsoft, Ravi, and he was part of the Azure team, leading what's now Azure App Services. It used to be Azure Websites, and when Azure used to be called as .NET Web Services, used to be there from those days. So when he started our company back in 2014, the intent was to help customers, primarily in the area of, cloud, right? Be it private cloud, public cloud, and private cloud, hybrid cloud technology was taking off 10 years back, and Microsoft had their first story of Azure in the data center with Windows Azure Pack. It's not truly Azure in the data center, it's more of providing an Azure-like classic portal experience to manage your on-prem workloads. And then we as a company saw an opportunity there to extend what Azure Pack can do for customers by enabling Azure Pack to not only manage Microsoft workloads like System Center Hyper-V or IIS websites or SQL databases, but also manage VMware workloads, because most of the enterprises invest in VMware as much as they do, or if not more, on Hyper-V. So most of the customers saying, hey, this app is great. I can have a cloud-like self-service portal experience, but if only I can also manage my VMware workloads, the life of all my employees or my customers is going to be easy, right? So we built a custom resource provider for Windows Azure Pack to enable VMware provisioning and management, just like how Microsoft offered Hyper-V provisioning and management on Windows Azure Pack. And then one thing led to another. When you take these solutions to customers, they say, hey, this is great. Can I back up my VMs, right from the same portal? So that's where we started implementing integrations with providers like Veeam and Commvault to enable backup of resources, be it in VMware, be it in Hyper-V, and then being able to manage all their backups, restore points, and restoring VMs and so on. And then customers said, hey, this is great. I'm a service provider. I have my data center, and I have a lot of customers that, to whom I offer the service. And Windows Azure Pack is a great technology to, monetize my service and to offer it on a self-service basis. But if only I can offer a Azure-like cost management solution or a billing solution, it would kind of truly cloudify my infrastructure, right? Because what is cloud without being able to consume services on a pay-as-you-go basis? And that's where we came in again. We built another custom resource provider for Azure Pack called the Usage and Billing Resource Provider, which enabled service providers in particular to easily track consumption of resources provisioned by their customers, and then be able to apportion the cost specific to each customers and tenants, and then be able to generate ongoing, ongoing usage and cost visibility, like in terms of how much have I consumed today or in the past month. Also have access to historic usage reports, and then generating invoices at the end of the month, and going on to integrate with payment gateways to also make payments through the same Windows Azure Pack portal, right? So imagine now, like you had a Windows Azure Pack portal which Microsoft built. Now all of a sudden we've truly, kind of made it to become on steroids. It kind of can integrate with VMware. You can do backups. You can do billing. It's like almost like Azure in your data center, albeit for your own private cloud, right? So that's how our journey started. And then as Microsoft evolved their Azure in the data center story with Azure Stack, back in 2015, it was in preview, and then in 2017 it got released with our partnership with Microsoft on Windows Azure Pack, and we worked very closely with them on the Azure Stack story as well for those 2 years when it was in private previews. And we were certified by Microsoft as only one of 2 approved partners that can build custom resource providers for Azure Stack. Now, Azure Stack itself went on to become, Azure Stack Hub. It got rechristened as Azure Stack Hub, and Azure Stack became a family of products called the Azure Stack family. And so today we have, again, 2 resource providers for Azure Stack Hub, similar to the 2 resource providers we built for Azure Pack. We brought those capabilities to Azure Stack Hub as well. We enabled, end customers who are investing in Azure Stack Hub to not only have a self-service portal experience via Azure Stack Hub portals to manage their Azure Stack Hub workloads, but also integrate with their legacy infrastructure like VMware, Hyper-V, and manage all of them right to the same Azure Stack Hub portal. And then we provided cloud-like billing for Azure Stack Hub, for Azure Stack Hub resources or other resources on-prem, and generating bills and whatnot. So that story was how we evolved, from Windows Azure Pack to Azure Stack Hub. And then Microsoft, kind of changed their direction a little bit in terms of Azure and the data center story, or the hybrid cloud scenario as we speak, right? So Azure Stack became Azure Stack Hub, and Azure Stack family had new members, namely Azure Stack HCI, which was Microsoft's original Windows Server converged, hyper-converged, suite of solutions. We have christened as Azure Stack HCI, and then it was a great solution, right? Because all of a sudden Microsoft saying, hey, you can have your on-prem infrastructure. You're not necessarily going to be tied to specific OEM vendors to get your hardware. You can repurpose any of the hardware, or you can get purpose-built hardware, and then you could deploy Azure Stack HCI on it. You could get this hyper-converged offer, a hardware in which you can offer all services, right? IaaS services or PaaS services, and so on. And then you get the goodness of Azure public cloud as well in terms of Azure policy management, Azure site recovery, Azure backups, and Azure hardback and whatnot, right? So you could integrate Azure Stack HCI with Azure and then get the goodness of Azure, and also have it in your own data center and so on. So right then, we realized that the breadth of capabilities that we had, even though we were offering them as resource providers, piggybacking on Microsoft technologies, they had evolved to become what we call as a typical cloud management platform like solution, right? Where you have the mechanism to provision, manage workloads, orchestrate workloads, and then you can go on to track consumption of resources, and then provide various reports, and then give visibility, and then apply pricing configurations, generate bills, and then you have Azure Stack HCI. Now, Azure Stack HCI did come with Windows Admin Center, which was an excellent tool, browser-based experience for operators.
You can be honest here. No one likes Windows Admin Center.
I mean, I hear you. Why you would say that? It wasn't built for everyone, right? Let's put it that way. It was built for operators, and
it was meant to be that it was there to replace the remote access, the remote management tools, and it grew like a monster, like.
I know.
It grew too fast and wasn't ready for what we needed with HCI, basically, or with the Arc integration. So as we're here.
Because the moment you introduce a tool to somebody and say that's your primary tool to manage your workloads in Azure Stack HCI, then everybody wants everything, right? People ask, hey, how about this? How about that? And then you can't say,
you want to have the virtual machine manager, Hyper manager, failover cluster manager in this one tool.
Exactly. So Windows Admin Center was there, and then it was primarily focused on operators, right? You didn't really have a self-service experience of consuming Azure Stack HCI as a service, where an employee of your company can come in and provision a VM by themselves against that cluster, right? You still have to rely on your operators to go do things on your behalf by going to Windows Admin Center, or of course they could use Azure Public Cloud Portal as well if you or integrate with
now when we start
PowerShell or whatnot.
Right, you're right. So there was no resource bridge. There was nothing in Virtual Machine Manager.
Exactly.
There's nothing of the glory we maybe see at Ignite this year. It was just HCI management, like you would manage your Hyper-V, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So we saw an opportunity to build a multi-tenanted, multi-cloud, white labelable portal solution. Again, it came with two different portal endpoints, one for operators and service admins and one for the end users. So we could really offer a cloud-like experience, cloud-like self-service experience for Azure Stack HCI workloads as well. Because remember, we had our resource providers already, for managing VMware, Hyper-V, Azure Stack Hub, and the like, and do billing for all of that. Now, we just brought over all those capabilities, except that we built a brand new, homegrown portal experience to surface all the existing capabilities that we already had, and then implemented the ability to also integrate with Azure Stack HCI and provide true self-service provisioning experience on Azure Stack HCI, right? So that was our story when we started. And while we were doing that, we realized that while Hyber which we call it Hyber, by the way, our platform is called Hyber, HYBR, and you can imagine where the name came from Hybrid Cloud and whatnot. And the name really stuck with us. And we saw that there is an opportunity here, in particularly for Azure Stack HCI, because Microsoft was bringing this great technology to partners and all of the customers who have been looking for what's next on what's the next great thing Microsoft's going to do on virtualization for on-prem, and how is this going to integrate with Azure and whatnot. But it didn't have a multi-tenancy story. Microsoft didn't advertise the product or envision the product, I should say, as a multi-tenanted solution. Now, again, multi-tenancy could mean different things for different people. If you ask Microsoft, they'll say one thing. If you ask the end customer, they'll say something else. You ask the service provider, they'll say something else. Right.
Let's make it clear also for people watching. So the Microsoft story for Hyper for multi-tenancy is that you as an operator have no access or anything to any virtual machine, to any workload.
Exactly.
And that's not a given point with HCI right now.
Exactly.
And it's because as an operator, even if there is still a small chance that you can get access to the data of your customer. So and you will see the virtual machines. Exactly. And the true multi-tenancy is still with Azure Stack Hub.
Yep.
But in HCI, we as operators, we see much more information than we should see from a virtual machine, and we, except maybe from SDN tags, we cannot really diverse tenants. There it's a really blind spot, at least from a Microsoft perspective, we have with HCI. That's why when you ask someone from Microsoft, you will always say, we do not have enough multi-tenancy offering. And that's the reason and why I wanted to have you on the call, because still from a Microsoft perspective, there is no multi-tenancy, but with Hyber, you're enabling a lot. But just in controversial to that, what's the multi-tenancy story you have? So what's your understanding for multi-tenancy? That we know Microsoft says, okay, there's no multi-tenancy because the operators can still see the workloads and can maybe gain access to the data.
Yeah.
What's the other side? So what's
exactly. So we don't live in a perfect world, do we? Right. So in a perfect world, like you said, Azure Stack Hub, which makes the whole appliance or the infrastructure as a black box for the operators and service admins, and guarantees that end users or tenants can provision and manage their workloads without fearing if the admins would have access to any of their data or any of their workloads, right? However, Azure Stack HCI, like you said, wasn't built with that intent, at least to start with, or as yet. And so here you have this great solution, in which you could, you have the hyper-converged infrastructure, storage spaces direct, you have SDN capability, you have all the goodness that comes with all of that, but you still can't offer it in a multi-tenant fashion. So you have customers, be it enterprises or be it service providers that offer HCI as a service, or they could be managed service providers who help other customers manage their Azure Stack HCI infrastructure.
Or even within a company, if you're seeing large companies like a Vodafone, Lufthansa, US, Bank of America, etc. All those customers are potential HCI customers, and they are offering services to their sister companies or child companies, or how you want to call it, subsidiaries.
Yes.
And those are totally different entities.
Exactly. You have these, what they call as conglomerates, or huge, group companies that have a lot of subsidiaries within them. Each of them, operate independently, and they want to have their own isolation of workloads and whatnot. So Microsoft is pitching Azure Stack HCI as a solution to all such customers, right? And then, so they buy it, but then they ask, hey, how do I make this multi-tenant? How do we bring in multi-tenancy into this, right? And that's where Hyber, offered a solution in that, Hyber provides a self-service experience for end users to come and consume, services in Azure Stack HCI as if it's a cloud service, which means I don't have to go send a request to an operator and then wait for somebody to fulfill my request and then, consume the service. I could do it on my own, right? So Hyber can do that. You could provision VMs and workloads on your own, and you can provision AKS workload clusters on your own, and you could potentially track the consumption of the resources that you're provisioning and how much cost they incur, right? Whether you could be an enterprise or you could be a service provider. End of the day, you want to track the costs involved in whatever workloads that are being run. So Hyber can enable all of that. Now, at the same time, when we talk about multi-tenancy, there are multiple aspects to it that Hyber can enable it. From our standpoint, multi-tenancy also includes what we call as the ability for the service provider. It could be service provider. I say service provider, it's an interchangeable term I'm using right now in this context, where I could be the service provider, IT service provider for my company in an enterprise who manages the whole HCI infrastructure and offers it as a service to various departments or business units or subsidiaries. Or it could be, I could be a hosting service provider that wants to offer HCI as a service to my external customers. Whichever the case it is, I as an operator, I want to be able to decide what kind of an experience I want to offer to my end users, right? And that could vary from tenant to tenant. One business unit might need a certain experience with Azure Stack HCI versus another business unit. And again, depending on whether it is for running a development environment or development testing environment or a production environment to run some mission critical system, the needs would vary, right? So how do you offer Azure Stack HCI as a service differently or uniquely based on the context or based on who the end user is? And that's where Hyber actually has all of these constructs that you come to see in typical public clouds, including Azure, like the ability to set quotas, in terms of defining limits on who can consume what and to what extent and what operations they can perform and so on. And then being able to model your services that you want to offer by bundling those services into plans and offers that people can subscribe to, right? Just like in Azure, you have quotas, plans, and offers, and anybody that wants to consume service in Azure, you got to subscribe to a plan or an offer. And then depending on what services are bundled within it and what quota limits are, you get to consume those services to the extent. So similarly, Hyber enables operators to create unique plans and offers with unique quotas. You could have, as a service provider, gold plan, silver plan, bronze plan to give different levels of quotas, right? Like either unlimited quota versus now you can only provision 10 VMs or up to 20 cores, up to 1 terabyte storage and whatnot. So you could define your class of customers and define your plans and offers uniquely, and then let end users subscribe. And then you can also decide how you want to charge back for your Azure Stack HCI services, depending on who the client is and what they use it for and for which purpose it is and so on. So how do you do that uniquely? Again, the same concept of quotas, plans, and offers come in handy. Like when you subscribe to a plan or offer, and it has an associated quota, and as part of that quota, you could define what is the pricing configuration you want to apply for any subscription that's created based on that plan, right? So that way, Hyber enables you as an operator to completely offer HCI as a service differently for different customers within your enterprise or for external customers. Secondly, when it comes to multi-tenancy, it's about how do you enable isolation, right? So I'm part of R&D department, and somebody is part of, say, corporate or HR, and then each of us have our own applications running on HCI, but we want to have isolation of our workloads. It could be VMs, it could be AKS clusters or applications, whatnot. How do you do that? And that's where Hyber can really come in and, on a self-service basis, enable your end users to create their own tenant virtual networks. Again, we piggyback on the software-defined networking capabilities that are available in Azure Stack HCI. So you don't have to work with an operator to do all of this on your behalf. You could just go to the Hyber end user portal, provision your VM workloads and link them to virtual networks that you've created. And SDN, as you'd have seen in the other videos that Flo has already shared, particularly there's a deep dive session on SDN that's really good. If you haven't seen it, you should see. They talk about all the benefits that come with SDN, right? Which is you get isolation of your workloads by creating your own virtual network. So even if you have the same IP address as some other department, it belongs to its own virtual network. So and as a result, they're isolated still. And then you have other capabilities in SDN infrastructure, which is the ability to create peering between virtual networks or enabling external access through IPsec, and VPN tunneling and whatnot. And then you could encrypt your virtual networks if you want to, and you could, even meter the egress bandwidth going out of your data center if you want to track and then charge back your customers for egress bandwidth. And then you can have load balancers to load balance workloads. So there are a lot of capabilities that are there in SDN. And Hyber enables you to, offer all of them on a self-service basis for an end customer to come in and provision VMs, link them to virtual networks, create, a micro-segmented, use data center firewall features like creating access control lists and associating them to your subnets. It can truly enable you on your own to provision, to deploy an application. It could be an end-tier application with UI layer or API layer and database layer. Each of these layers having workloads running in different subnets, and then you could have access control lists defined that prescribe or define which workloads can access which workloads and who can access and who cannot. And then of course you can also have load balancer in the front to expose it on a public IP and so on, right? So all of these capabilities can be made available by Hyber on a self-service basis to enable multi-tenancy and by piggybacking on the SDN features.
So you're then basically with Hyber, you're piggybacking on the network controllers and configuring it maybe by a PowerShell and then setting up the which machines and
absolutely. So the network controller has REST API endpoint, and you can also do it to PowerShell. So multiple ways to do it. And yes, we rely on the network controller to pretty much do all of this. And so when we talk about multi-tenancy, like we talked about ability to define services uniquely. We talked about isolating workloads at a network level using SDN capabilities. Then you can you also have to think about identity, right? Like, so how do you make it easy for end users to come in, bring in their own work accounts and be able to consume this as a service, right? And that's where Hyber also enables integration with any Azure Active Directory tenant, or it could be your enterprise Active Directory exposed via ADFS.
So then that means you have the Azure Active Directory layer for the fabric, so HCI and Arc connected, and then you can you enable the customer, department, client, tenant, whatsoever to connect their virtual machines, their workloads, their Kubernetes cluster to their specific own tenant, and have that independently from the fabric.
Yes, so with Hyber, I can bring my own work account to log into Hyber and access my workloads, and only I have access to my workloads, and nobody else can see it. And now, if you are going to be integrating with Arc and you are enabling Arc integration for your VMs or for your Kubernetes workload clusters, then you could potentially go to the Azure Public Cloud portal also with your own work account and then see those resources there, right? And just like Azure Public Cloud with Hyber as well, you get robust role-based access control capability. So there's a similar concept like resource groups in Azure. We also have a resource group concept in Hyber where you can logically group your resources and define access control for it. And the system offers out-of-the-box owner, contributor, reader roles, and then you could create custom roles yourself, with custom permissions to align with your business processes, and thereby, enable further isolation of resources, as aligned with your business processes, right? So all of those capabilities, are made available in Hyber, and all of them are available on a self-service basis. Just like in Azure Public Cloud, you can do all of this role-based access control yourself. You can do the same here with Hyber as well.
Yeah. I know that. So would you be able to just demo do a short intro into the Hyber portal? I know you will bring a multi-tenancy blog post, which I will link in the description as soon as you publish this. There's the series, or you have a web series which is run by one of your colleagues, Praveen, which I will also link. I really like that one, where people can join. Can you just show or do a quick intro in Hyber and show it to the audience, just to get a feeling and so wet some tongues and get people hyped for Hyber.
Absolutely, I'd love to. Today, I'll try to see if the demo gods are going to be with us to show you a little bit of how Hyber looks and feels, and how you can do multi-tenancy with Hyber. We might follow up with a more detailed session where I can walk through these features in more details, right? Depending on the interests from the audience. So what I have here is one of our demo environments. It's demo.admin.hyber.com. And this is the operators portal experience of Hyber, right? And then I have another tab here, which is for the end user portal experience or the tenant user experience, and it's demo.hyber.com. So as I said earlier, Hyber comes with two different portal endpoints, one for operators and one for end users. And it's the end users portal that's where the true value of Hyber is, because everything that we enable on the operators portal side is to make HCI as a service available for end users to consume on a self-service basis via the end user portal. So how does all these things come to work together with Hyber, right? Hyber and Azure Stack HCI. So one of the first things that you do when you deploy Hyber, now again, Hyber can be deployed. Azure is available as a SaaS service. You could, we host it in our own Azure subscription. You can, subscribe to Hyber through our SaaS portal, or if you have some data sovereignty requirements, you want to run it in your own Azure subscription in your country, then you can do that also. We provide that option. So that's our SaaS story, to run it in Azure and then integrate it with your on-prem infrastructure and so on. Or, if you have more restrictions for whatever reasons that require Hyber to run in your own on-prem data center, be it in your own HCI infrastructure or other infrastructure that resides side by side with your HCI infra, you can do that too. Assuming you've deployed Hyber, then you'll end up having these two portal endpoints, one for operators and one for tenants. The operators portal experience is where right now I'm in. It comes with a lot of features. Again, what features are enabled in a given environment really depends on what you've licensed Hyber for. Like I said earlier, Hyber is this multi-cloud, multi-tenanted portal solution. It offers integration with Azure Stack HCI, Azure Stack HCI, VMware, System Center Hyper-V, and so on and so forth, and then billing and whatnot. Then there are a lot of other features that I'm not even talking about here, right? Like CSP self-service. If you're a CSP partner of Microsoft, you could even make Hyber be a self-service portal experience to let people purchase Office 365, Azure, and whatnot. But depending on what you've licensed, the features light up here. And for multi-cloud management, vConnect is the core capability in Hyber that enables you to offer multi-cloud as a service. So I go to the operators portal, I click on vConnect, then I'm brought into this connections tab where I have the ability to integrate Hyber with disparate virtualization platforms or cloud infrastructures. It could be public cloud like Azure or AWS, or it could be on-prem cloud solutions like Azure Stack Hub, or it could be Azure Stack HCI, VMware vCenter, Hyper-V, System Center, so on and so forth. And then if you want to integrate backup solutions, you could onboard all of that, right? So the first step is to connect your on-prem infrastructure or cloud infrastructure with Hyber, and that's why it's called connections. And right now I'm on the Azure Stack HCI tab, and when I click on this, it shows me all the connections that I've created to Azure Stack HCI clusters in our data centers, right? Again, all of these are single node clusters or running on a single host, but in a nested fashion. So we simulate multiple nodes in an Azure Stack HCI cluster and so on. So these are not really production grade infrastructures or production environments. These are for dev test purposes to enable us to build our HCI integration story in Hyber and then demonstrate it to customers and so on, right? So I have a few clusters here, and I've created connections to these clusters. And what does the connection comprise of? It comprises of an administrative credential to connect to your cluster endpoint. It could be an IP address or the DNS name of your cluster. And then you could say, hey, I'm enabling this connection for provisioning workloads against using Hyber. And then if you want browser-based console connect feature, just like Azure Bastion, where you could connect, connect into your VM and then access your VM, boot into your VM right from the browser. We have a console connect feature in Hyber as well. You can turn it on. If your underlying infrastructure in the cluster has Kubernetes enabled, then you could turn on Kubernetes as a service for your end customers. And then if you have SDN infrastructure deployed in your HCI cluster, then you could turn that on also here. And accordingly, you'll be asked for additional information about your network controller endpoint and so on in the subsequent screen, right? So that's the preliminary thing that you got to go through to onboard an HCI cluster to Hyber for enabling self-service provisioning against. And once you've done that, then as an operator, you go on to decide what kind of workloads do I want my end users to be able to provision against, like what flavors of Linux, what flavors of Windows Server or Windows Guest OS, like Windows 10, Windows 7, whatnot, Windows 11 that I want to let end users be able to provision as VM workloads against my infrastructure, right? So when we call these as VM templates, these are nothing but a VM image underneath, which could be a VHDX file that you link it to. and then along with a bunch of guest OS customization specs, right? So these could be like, hey, what's underlying image, where does it reside? And am I going to allow creation of Gen 1 VMs or Gen 2 VMs using this template? And then which is the switch against which all VMs provisioned, using this template are going to be associated with? What is the default administrative password if you want to provide one, right? And so on and so forth. So when you've gone about creating a VM in Azure Stack HCI from Azure Admin Center or wherever, you would get to ask a bunch of inputs, right? So these are similar to that. Now, the only thing is the operator can decide which of these input parameters need to be controlled by themselves as the operator. For example, the operator completely controls what is underlying image they want to make available for provisioning a VM based on a certain OS flavor. Like in this case, it's the Ubuntu 16. So similarly, I'll have various images for various flavors. So the operator would control this parameter. So they would not enable this parameter to be configurable by the tenant when they provision the VM. Whereas there could be other parameters that they might let the end customer or the end user that provisions the VM to have control on. For example, the administrator password, right? For that matter, you could turn on any of these options. Depending on, again, that's where I said, depending on your context in terms of where you're using Hyber for, or for which environment you're going to use against, or for which users and which environment. Again, it could be the same user, whereas in one environment, they might have access to the underlying switch and be able to choose generation of the VMs and so on and so forth because it's a dev environment or something. Whereas if it's a production environment, you could completely lock down all of these parameters from end users, and you as an operator can define it, right? Again, depending on your context, you can turn on or off what an end user can customize or not customize. And you can also enforce certain parameters to be required and as must fill, so that end users are made to fill that when they provision a VM, right? And then you can publish these templates into the marketplace experience in Hyber. Just like Azure has its marketplace experience where you could offer various workloads, advertise various workloads, and document the purpose of it, and let end customers see a catalog of templates to choose and provision workloads from. Similar way, you could create a curated marketplace in Hyber by publishing your Azure Stack HCI templates using the publish to marketplace feature here, right? So you could put in a lot of marketing text here about what is this offer about, why is it important, or why is it the right fit for a particular customer, and so on. And then you can publish to the marketplace, and then in the end user portal, they can go to the marketplace experience and get to see these offers, right? So I'll show you that in the end user portal. We call it the service catalog. I'll show that to you in a bit. Once you've done these things, then the next thing for you to decide is, okay, I got my HCI clusters onboarded, and I have defined what kind of workloads my end users should be able to provision in terms of OS flavors. Now I'm going to model my services. Here again, like I said, for multi-tenancy, the key thing for you is to create those plans, offers, and quotas, right, for end users to consume the service, and then create unique plans and unique offers depending on your customers and what their needs are. So let me go to the plans UI here, and I'm going to pick a particular plan. Let's take this particular plan. And you see here, there are a couple of services added to this plan. One of them is the vConnect service. The other one is the marketplace service catalog feature. So you drill into vConnect. Yeah, my demo environment is a little slow, so you got to bear with it for a second here. But what you're going to see is once you get into this plans UI, you would be able to configure the quota settings, in terms of, what cluster endpoints can the end user provision against, and to what extent they can provision resources in terms of number of resources, and so on and so forth.
Okay. So that's and more or less similar from what most of the customers already know from Azure Stack Hub, and what they would expect from, or what they maybe get in a bit of a clunky experience with the current resource page. And you said it's customizable, so it means also I can put my corporate logo somewhere, can make it look like more of my own environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll show that to you in just a moment. This took a while, but it loaded the quota settings page for the plan, in which I can pick and choose what are the endpoints against which I want my end user to be able to provision against, right? So in this particular demo environment, I have a bunch of AKS HCI clusters. I have some Azure Stack Hub, environments. I have an Azure Public Cloud connection, and I have connection to Hyper-V workloads via System Center. So I could pick and choose any of these to be made available for my end users to provision against. And then I can define overall quotas in terms of, hey, when you subscribe to a plan based, when you subscribe to this particular plan or offer, you could provision up to 10 VMs, right? So this is what I can define as part of this offer to my customers. It could be a gold offer in which I could say you could provision up to 100 VMs, or if it's a silver offer, I could say you can provision up to 50 VMs. And then I could define, cumulative quota for the CPU cores. Depending on the number of VMs I allow, I might, tailor this particular amount as well. Or if you want to give unlimited capacity, I could simply choose that as well, right? And then same applies for RAM or storage and so on and so forth. So these are the cumulative quotas across all the workloads that you're going to create as part of that particular subscription you create, based on this plan, and to what extent you can create them, right? Even if you want to offer like a lab service, which is ephemeral in nature or like temporary in nature, where you probably want to spin up a lab environment for somebody to learn something, to train for some certification, or you are conducting an interview and you ask them to go to an environment, you spin up an environment and ask them to do something there. Then you could easily, create plans for that as well, wherein the subscription itself is valid only for a certain duration, and then it automatically gets unsubscribed and deprovisioned at the end of it, right? So you could even simulate that through Hyber's, capabilities here, and then you can optionally even restrict what operations are available when somebody tries to provision or manage workloads against that particular environment, right, as part of this plan. So that's what you see here. And we also have robust approval mechanisms. So let's say you are an enterprise and you have, hierarchical teams where when somebody provisions something, particularly in, say, in a production environment, you want an approval email or approval to be done by a manager within the department, and optionally maybe even an IT admin to approve it, right? So then you could have, end-tier approval workflows to be integrated, when you provision compute instances, right? So again, these are things that we help configure for our customers depending on their business needs as we work with each customer and then onboard them to use Hyber, right? And then to talk about Flo's question about how do we customize my portal, I could go to the portal customization feature here, and I'll be able to customize the logo. And then there are a few themes that we support, and then you could change the theme, in terms of how it looks and feels, and so on. And then accordingly, the portal gets, updated. Kind of similar to what Azure Stack Hub offers in terms of portal customization. Flo, did you have a question?
No, that's perfectly fine. So from my perspective, I think we covered most of the things we wanted to talk about. As said, it was our plan to have a brief overview.
Right.
So maybe we can. Is there anything you want to show in addition? Otherwise, I would say we switch back to us side by side and discussing how a journey with CloudAssert and Hyber could start. So who to contact or where they can
absolutely. So
look for it.
Yeah. I think I would love to have a more detailed session sometime down the line, where I talk about the end user capabilities in more detail in terms of how you can provision and manage VMs, how you can create your own virtual networks and then create ACLs and, create VNet peers and so on and so forth, or create Kubernetes clusters for that matter. And that's going to be its own detailed demo. It's going to take, 30 minutes to an hour by itself. So we could probably have a follow-up session there. And like you suggested, we could probably talk about how how you can reach CloudAssert and how we can help you, right?
After that great demo, we're now back side to side. So when someone is now interested, or I would definitely put your links in the description.
Sure.
Praveen's web series into as soon as we have the blog post about multi-tenancy published, that will also be there. But when customers want to start with Hyber, what is the normal process? So is that just calling your sales, getting some kind of demo, and or how do they normally engage?
Right. So many times we hear about customers needing multi-tenancy on Azure Stack HCI. That's when any customer brings up, hey, I want to achieve multi-tenancy on Azure Stack HCI. That's we are probably the first person that either the Microsoft field salesperson or the OEM contact that works with the customer reaches out to. Or the customer could say, hey, I want to do cloud-like billing for Azure Stack HCI. And that's again a scenario where we are one of the top partners that can help with. Now, how can customers reach us? customers can, simply write to info@cloudassert.com, info@cloudassert.com to reach us. And then if you go to our website, cloudassert.com, and then check out our products and solutions, you see a lot of content out there specifically focused on Azure Stack HCI. And then you'd have, call to action links there to either request a demo or to contact us to get to know about our solution. And typically the journey is irrespective of whether somebody reaches out to us directly by Googling about multi-tenancy solutions or getting to our website, or if they come through an OEM contact or Microsoft, we probably the next step we would do is a demo, right? We typically share with them some collaterals about the product upfront. We have write-up of our solution. We have videos from past webinars and demos that we share with them for their awareness. And then, but we typically also have a meeting where we try to understand what are the challenges that they are facing today, or what is it that they want to achieve in Azure Stack HCI that they're not able to do today. And then, or maybe it's a scenario where somebody is trying to pitch Azure Stack HCI as a solution and they're competing with, say, a VMware or some other play, right? And so we help as a partner, showcase how, with what Microsoft offers out of the box, how can you complement that with Hyber to enable true multi-tenancy and then also, achieve billing, etc., and then kind of connect all the dots, right? So, so as part of these demo sessions, we show, we kind of give them a detailed overview of the features, and we focus on which features are relevant for the customer, and then we walk through that. And then typically these are very interactive, and they ask questions, and then we clarify them. We talk about things that are already in place and what is in our backlog, and so on. And our customers, like us because we don't say that, hey, here's a solution, here's how much, here's how you can license, here's how much it costs, take it or leave it. No, it's not that, right? We evolve our product based on actual customer needs. A lot of the features that we've built is based on feedback we've received from actual customers during demos like these, or existing customers who are using it in production, or people like you, who are evangelists for Azure Stack HCI technology. You work with various customers, and like what are the typical problems that are gaps that exist today that a partner like us can fulfill. And that's what kind of motivates us to add to the product. And we are committed to a monthly release cycle. So which means chances are we could, if we find that some customers asking for something and it could benefit a lot of other customers, then we'll just go and add it to our backlog and then get it done the next month or next 3 months, depending on how easy or difficult it is. On the other hand, there could be customers that say, hey, I saw your demo, it's excellent, and then I want to do a POC, and then we kind of set up a POC for them. Again, there are a couple of options there. They could, depending on whether they want to deploy it on-prem or can use one of our SaaS environments. We could spin it up quickly and then drive a demo. Many times we offer a free trial for the first month, right? As a free trial, but in some cases they might want to achieve specific goals and more hands-on approach to planning the POC phase itself and so on. And it could even go for 3+ months. In such case, we might even do a POC contract with the customer to be able to do that, right? And they're prepared for it because their expectations are also such. But either way, they can get to do a POC. And then as part of the POC, we typically identify, okay, here's how I can use the solution. And maybe these are the 2 or 3 other things I also need as part of the solution, right? And they might be willing to go live with the solution as is, and then have a roadmap where we mutually agree that we will deliver these additional features in the next 3 to 6 months. Or they might, insist that, hey, what, this one additional thing needs to be implemented before I can adopt the solution, right? And in such cases, we decide mutually with the customer if they are willing to pay us a little bit to fast track the development at the cost of other things. They might be even willing to do it, or if they're willing to wait for a couple of months, we will do it without any additional charges, right? So that's typically how we engage with the customer. But the key takeaway here amongst all of this is we help them understand the solution, we understand their needs, and then show them how it can be addressed with Hyber. And if there are gaps, we are pretty open about it. And then we tell them, what we can do about them, how soon we can get them addressed. And, we also tell them if it's going to cost them something, additional for us to build that, in a short period of time. We give them, an excellent free trial for a month where they can get to feel all of the features. And then we are on standby to answer any questions right through that phase. We do a white glove service for the POC, right? And then if they have more targeted, detailed POCs, then we might do it as a professional service. And at the end of it, the customer has a good angle of the solution. They find that, oh yeah, this is the kind of solution I was looking for. Then we move on to, the licensing and, turning it on production. I mean, several customers do the POC in their production environment itself. So when they want to go live, it's just about updating the license key than anything else, to enable them to go live. Only in certain cases, they would have done it
We
in test
never
environment.
encourage doing POCs
I
or
know.
tests in production.
I know. That's what we encourage too.
Customers.
Customers have their, own ideas sometimes, right? I mean, some of them, if they are like clear that they want to go live, but they just want to see certain things and validate certain things, they're willing to do it in production directly because they're optimistic, and then then they complete the formality of the POC, and then they just turn on the license key. That's about it.
Well, that's a good sign for the solution overall. So your commitment in the first place, also that you can run it in a production environment without, let's say, having major changes. If it does not work, you can just shut down and remove.
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't disrupt any of your HCI services. You could have HCI, you could have Windows Admin Center, you could have enabled Arc integration. When you deploy Hyber, it doesn't disrupt any of those services. It runs on a side-by-side basis and complements the other services. So you can easily uninstall it. And so it's a hassle-free trial, or a risk-free trial from that standpoint, right?
Yeah.
And if you were going to use a SaaS version of Hyber, then except for an agent that runs on your on-prem infrastructure, everything else is running on the cloud. So, the uninstallation process is that much more lightweight, at that point. So, I could, talk a lot more about, how our architecture of the solution is, in SaaS deployment versus this deployment, and so on and so forth. But
and a hard closing question, also to complement a bit of the video I did with Steve, is it, and it would at least 2 or 3 of my customers would ask you when being on the call, can it run on private link or on a private endpoint in Azure?
I don't see why not, because the way our edge infrastructure works, it can work on a private link as well. And I would think customers would prefer to do it from a security standpoint as well, right? Than making it public. Why not? Because there's nothing in the architecture that would prevent it from, working that way.
Yeah. Then I think we're set. So we could say amazing introduction today, and hopefully we can do some more on that stuff. Maybe going deeper into demo.
Absolutely.
And I think as an overview, we told a lot today, and I think you will get some, at least from, I have a few customers in my business pipeline there where I already told about your multi-tenancy story. So there will be and hopefully we get more comments and audience.
Yeah, I know. Like you were saying earlier, right? We have this blog coming up, and it's going to talk about multi-tenancy scenarios and demystify some of those things a little bit. We can't completely demystify it because there's still certain things that are not so black and white, but we want to put all the common questions that people ask about multi-tenancy and try to cover them as part of the blog, and then talk about how Hyber can help, at what it can or cannot do, and so that people get clarity around what's possible with multi-tenancy and how Hyber can help, right? So I think that blog is going to be really helpful, and it's like pretty much in the final stages, and we're going to be getting it published in the next few days. So I'll share that with you, Flo, and I think the customers would definitely benefit from that.
Definitely, and we can mention here that you found amazing reviewers for that blog. So
absolutely, yeah. Thanks to you, thanks to you again. So a lot of experts.
I'm just a human connection point for people, and you have Sven who's from Langenfeld from our OEM partner team, who is supporting with the license stuff and reviewing the license. You have Phil, who took a look on the SDN part to ensure that those information. So I can really highlight that if it's there, or come back to the video and check out that blog post. So there were a lot of people, not only the expert from CloudAssert putting efforts into that, there are a lot of more reviewers having a look on those information. I would say making it our Bible for multi-tenancy in HCI. Can I say that? It's okay.
Yeah, we could. I mean, except that it's not going to be just written once and then nobody's going to change it. The story will be edited, right? That's it's a work in progress. But what we're going to try to do is what we know as of today and what are the options out there and what can be done, what cannot, and having these experts who get asked these questions on a day-to-day basis by customers, weigh in on what we've written and then give inputs on what else we should cover, etc. It really would make this blog post grounded and ensure that people can take value out of it, right? And there are going to be other people who will read it and then may still have questions coming out of it, right? And that's okay. And the point of this is also to spread the word around, help people understand, and then if there are more questions, then it gives us more responsibility to go and find answers and answer those as well. So maybe this could be the start of a series. Maybe it cannot be just one blog post that addresses all of those questions.
And I really like the effort you're putting into that. So then let's make that our closing words. I think we talked about a lot. We have that blog post upcoming. We have more content. We have your series. There's a lot to learn out there for everyone. So again, leave us comments. Subscribe to all the channels we have out there. So, and yeah, help us to define these hybrid cloud story, basically.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Flo. I was very happy to be part of your initiative, and I'll be happy to be back again.
Perfect then. Have a great one, and bye.
Bye.